Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 10 Part 67 based on novel. So let's start. The attempted abdication of Darkness Palace had been suppressed by Lin Dong's timely actions and Qingtan's brilliance before it could go out of control. This not only enabled Darkness Palace to remain largely intact, but also allowed Qingtan to cement her grasp of power. Henceforth, she would be the true palace master of Darkness Palace. Of course, given the position of Darkness Palace within the Northern Xian region, it would not be wrong to call her the Empress of the Northern Xian region. Such a situation was something Lin Dong would never have even dreamed of. He never expected that the day would come where this little tag-along would attain accomplishments that would make even himself speechless. However, these achievements made him feel quite helpless. He had only wished for her to be how she was in the past, a cute, silly and pampered girl who could be merry all day long. Regardless, there was now nothing that could be done, and Lin Dong could only accept it. This was especially so whenever he was about to get angry. The lass would immediately become resentful and display a look of resignation to any scolding or beating, causing him to both laugh and his mood to improve. Hence, he could only let the matter of her final punishment rest. In the end, what made Lin Dong heave a sigh of relief was that at the very least, the same sincere feelings from the heart from many years ago remained when facing Qingtan. This pure feeling was the main reason why Lin Dong allowed the pitiful acting Qingtan to fool around in the past. Although he was exceedingly doting towards her, if she was to use underhanded tactics on those close to her, Lin Dong would be truly disappointed in her. This was his greatest taboo. Following the end of the ceremony, Lin Dong spent the subsequent days resting in Darkness City. With the situation in Darkness Palace having just stabilized, Qingtan obviously had many matters to settle. As a result, it was impossible for Lin Dong to forcefully take her away. At present, he could only wait for her to conclude all these matters. A few bamboo houses stood within a secluded bamboo forest. The clear view through the dark green scenery made one feel carefree and relaxed. Lin Dong was lying on his back in front of a bamboo house with a bamboo leaf in his mouth. Warm sunlight shone down onto his body, causing him to feel lazy all over. After lying in this position for a while, he pushed his upper body up and looked to his front where a beautiful lady in a white dress held a 3-foot-long sword. As the sword lightly danced, her graceful figure was akin to a butterfly. It was a beautiful sight that shook one's very core. Watching a lady perform a sword dance was exceedingly pleasing to the eye, especially when this lady had a devastatingly beautiful appearance. He was unable to take his eyes off her beautiful silhouette. The latter seemed to have sensed his gaze. With a light twitch of her sword and a light tap of her fingertips, a dozen bamboo leaves shot towards Lin Dong like sharp blade glows. Lin Dong remained motionless, allowing the sharp bamboo leaves to brush past his body and leave deep scars on the ground around him. Ling Qingzhu kept her sword, walked over and helplessly shook her head as she glanced at Lin Dong. The numerous martial arts she practiced were for pursuing a calm and tranquil state of mind, and she was rather proud of her mental fortitude. Even exceptional experts who led magnificent armies were unable to shake her. The only exception was the man in front of her. A single look from him made her unable to calm her heart. Just what exactly had she trained for? Lin Dong gazed at Ling Qingzhu's expression and involuntarily chuckled. "Take a seat and rest, you must be rather tired after following me across such great distances to the Northern Xian region, no?" Ling Qingzhu hesitated slightly. She slightly brushed at the ground with her lily-white hands, before she gently sat down in front of the bamboo house. Subsequently, she extended a slender hand to block the ray of sunlight that shone through the cracks of the bamboo leaves. The radiance of the sunlight on her hand caused the cold and distant expression in her eyes to slowly become more gentle. She turned her head slightly and gazed upon Lin Dong's languid face. Biting her lips slightly, she remained silent for a long time before suddenly asking, "Are you not asking about zenith sensing art just because I told you not to?" Lin Dong was stunned by her sudden question. Soon after, he turned to face Ling Qingzhu's beautiful veiled face. When she saw him look straight at her, she shifted her gaze away instead. "You must naturally have your own reason to ask me to not inquire about it." Lin Dong chuckled and looked at Ling Qingzhu. She had lowered her eyes in response to his words. After which, he said, also, a part of me hopes that I'll be unable to learn it. There still are some things that I'm afraid that I can't do. Ling Qingzhu replied, my 9 Heavens Supreme Purity Palace owes you a debt. It will not be unreasonable even if you were to request to learn the Zenith sensing art. If your 9 Heavens Supreme Purity Palace owed a debt to anyone else, would you be willing to teach them? Lin Dong replied while staring at Ling Qingzhu. You? Ling Qingzhu's slightly chilly gaze was abruptly awash with rage. She immediately stood up and tried to storm off in a huff, but Lin Dong suddenly reached out and grabbed her hand. Touching her hand felt like touching perfect jade, smooth and supple with a hint of coolness. It was a feeling that made one reluctant to part with it. Their bodies seemed to stiffen at that very moment. Ling Qingzhu definitely did not expect such an action from him. She was initially stunned, but soon attempted to retract her hand. However, Lin Dong reacted by tightly grasping it, making her struggles futile. What are you doing? At this moment, Ling Qingzhu's heart had already plunged into panic as she hurriedly blurted out. Lin Dong continued to hold her hand. He did not doing anything else, but merely smiled. So what else are you going to do to stop me? Ling Qingzhu lightly clenched her teeth. The warmth spreading from her hand caused her to feel a little weak. Soon after, she turned her head and looked at Lin Dong's smiling face. In the end, she sighed in her heart and stopped struggling. The bamboo forest was exceptionally quiet under the sunlight. 2 figures held hands, one standing and one sitting. Light seemed to form a halo around the 2 figures, creating an exceptionally tranquil scene. This scene seemed to go on forever. Before footsteps sounded in the distance, Qingtan's voice arrived from the distance, Big Brother Lin Dong. This sound instantly shattered the tranquility. Ling Qingzhu hurriedly retracted her hand from Lin Dong's grasp and stood to one side. She did not look at him, but a blush had emerged on her face. Lin Dong chuckled as if he wished to continue before standing up. A lovely figure flew over from far away before rushing into his embrace like a hungry swallow. Behind her were several experts from Darkness Palace. However, upon witnessing this scene, they hurriedly lowered their heads and carefully retreated. Lin Dong looked at the girl wearing a black skirt in his arms and caressed her little head. Done with today's matters? More or less. Qingtan stretched lazily, displaying her exquisite figure. She hugged Lin Dong's arm as she giggled and saying, Did Big Brother Lin Dong miss me? It has only been so long, what are you trying to get at? Lin Dong shook his head while laughing. However, father and mother miss you terribly. Hurry and get your matters in order, then follow me back to the Eastern Xian region to meet father and mother. When we're back, father's definitely going to show his unhappiness, and mother might even smack my bottom. Big Brother Lin Dong, you must protect me. Qingtan fearfully said in a hesitant manner. When she had argued with Liu Yang before she left home back then. You reap what you sow, you can only blame yourself and accept your punishment. Lin Dong shook his head and replied indifferently. Seeing how unwavering Lin Dong was, Qingtan's expression instantly turned sour. Upon hearing this conversation, Ling Qingzhu could not help but smile. Sister Qingzhu, have you been living comfortably here? Qingtan looked towards Ling Qingzhu with a lovely smile as she inquired. Ling Qingzhu replied with a slight smile and a nod. Lin Dong watched the 2 ladies converse and did not interrupt. After a moment, he pulled Qingtan over. Qingtan, I have something to ask you. You know about the Yimo, right? Yimo? Qingtan was startled for a moment, before nodding. I currently possess the Darkness ancestral symbol and naturally know about the Yimo. In that case, have you found any traces of Yimos in the northern Xian region? Lin Dong asked. The Yimo had been so active in the eastern Xian region, it was impossible that there wasn't any activity here in the northern Xian region, right? Qingtan scrunched her eyebrows and pondered, before shaking her head. Our Darkness Palace is the overlord of the northern Xian region. After so many years, we've naturally faced off against those evil Yimo, but there wasn't anything particularly shocking. Lin Dong was inwardly surprised. Could it be that the northern Xian region was really so clean? Given Devil Prison's overbearing methods that had even enabled them to invade the celestial demon Martin tribe, no matter how powerful the Darkness Palace was, they wouldn't be able to force Devil Prison into helplessness, right? Could they really be so wary of the Darkness ancestral symbol? Unable to reach a conclusion, Lin Dong could only shake his head and put the matter aside for the time being. Because Qingtan had settled the internal affairs of the palace, she stayed here with them. Night quickly fell while the trio engaged in hearty conversation. Qingtan seemed to become extremely indolent once she was at Lin Dong's side. Under the cover of the moonlight, she simply fell into a deep sleep in Lin Dong's embrace. Lin Dong looked at Qingtan, who was lying on his legs like a kitten. Smiling, he carefully carried her and moved her onto the bed in the bamboo house. Only after making sure she was nicely tucked in did he stealthily leave the house. Under the moonlight, Ling Qingzhu stood in a simple yet elegant manner. She watched Lin Dong walk out and suddenly commented in a soft voice, "Qingtan is really fond of you. She has been like this since young." Lin Dong replied while nodding. Ling Qingzhu glanced at him. Just as she was about to speak again, both of their expressions suddenly changed slightly. Looking up, both of them saw a black silhouette standing silently on a bamboo under the crescent moon. A pair of black eyes seemed exceptionally strange under the moonlight. Lin Dong stared at the silhouette as his pupils slightly contracted. You're the Lin Dong that the fourth Seat King mentioned, right?" The black figure looked at Lin Dong and asked with a soft laugh. "And which venerable one of Devil Prison might you be?" Lin Dong asked with an icy chuckle. The black figure lifted his head slightly. Under the moonlight, a face covered with demonic runes was revealed. He grinned, revealing a row of sinisterly white teeth that exuded an eerie aura. "I'm the seventh Seat King, and I'm here for you. I'm the seventh Seat King and I'm here for you." After that black figure uttered this sentence, Lin Dong's expression turned ugly immediately, before his entire body tensed up. Based on what he knew about Devil Prison, that strange and enormous Yumo group, the most frightening ones were the ones known as the Seated Kings. For example, the 10th Seat King who showed up in the shattered space back then, and whose strength Lin Dong estimated to surpass experts who have passed 2 reincarnation tribulations. Moreover, the 7th Seat King standing in front of him was likely in no way weaker than the 10th Seat King. This was Lin Dong's first face-to-face encounter with a top-ranked individual of Devil Prison. The 4th Seat King, whom he met in the Eastern Xian region, was terrifying, but that was just his avatar. Therefore, he did not pose much of a threat to Lin Dong. However, the 7th Seat King standing in front of him was the real deal. Black light and lightning glow slowly emerged within Lin Dong's eyes. Meanwhile, his yuan power and mental energy surged forward. Clearly, judging by Lin Dong's current appearance, it seems like he was preparing to face a major adversary. Ling Qingzhu, who was standing beside him, was also glaring at the 7th Seat King with her pretty eyes. Meanwhile, the longsword in her jade-like hands was buzzing gently. "I never expect that the Devil Prison would actually send such an important man like you for a small fry like me." Lin Dong glared at the 7th Seat King before he slowly said, Please don't be modest. You're not a small fry anymore. In fact, you're one of the top-ranked individuals on our Devil Prison's hit list. Therefore, it's only reasonable for someone like me to take action personally." The 7th Seat King replied with a laugh. Lin Dong snorted, before he said, "However, when an important man like you makes a move, it's surely going to cause a huge commotion. Aren't you afraid that the awakened Lightning Master will come and look for you?" Upon hearing this, the smile on the 7th Seat King's face froze for a moment. Promptly, he replied softly, "In the past, the Lightning Master was lying dormant in the northern Xian region. Therefore, we rarely ventured here. However, now that he has awakened and left the northern Xian region, if we finish you off quickly, I believe that he should be unable to detect it. Is that so?" The black light and lightning glow within Lin Dong's eyes became increasingly resplendent. Meanwhile, mighty waves began to stealthily spread. The 7th Seat King chuckled and nodded. Then, he surveyed his surroundings before he said, "This isn't the ideal place for a fight. Therefore, I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to go on a trip with me." Upon saying this, he waved his hand before the surrounding space began to distort. After which, 5 strange black figures suddenly appeared. However, after those black figures appeared, Lin Dong's pupils shrunk immediately. This was because he realized that the 5 of them were all Yimo kings. Evidently, Devil Prison had expended huge resources in order to deal with him. After the 5 black figures appeared, a black light instantly shot out from within their palms. After which, the black lights crisscrossed in midair, before they formed a light formation and enveloped the Lin Dong duo. Qingzhu, retreat. When Lin Dong saw this situation, he was alarmed. Then, he immediately grabbed Ling Qingzhu and tried to retreat. However, just as they were about to escape from that light formation, their surroundings suddenly distorted violently. Teleport. Low roars emanated from the 5 black figures, before the space became extremely warped. Then, the light formation sparkled before the 5 black figures, the 7th Sikh King, and the Lin Dong duo, all vanished from this place. In fact, the remnant spatial fluctuations were the only indications that something had happened here previously. Boom! Right after they disappeared, startling fluctuations suddenly erupted from within the bamboo house, before black light swept forward, instantly reducing the bamboo house into nothing. Then, a petite figure leapt out and stood in the sky. Meanwhile, her icy cold face was filled with rich-killing desire, as she stared at the distorted space. Many rushing wind noises sounded in her surroundings. In merely a few breaths, thousands of figures had arrived in the vicinity of the bamboo forest. When they saw Qingtan, who was standing in midair with a cold expression, they quickly knelt down. All you useless beings! To think that so many Yimo were able to infiltrate our darkness city undetected. Why am I keeping you all around for? Qingtan clenched her jade-like hand, before her darkness-sent scythe appeared. Then, her eyes were filled with rage as she glared at the experts from Darkness Palace, who were gathered around her, before she roared. When they detected Qingtan's frightening killing intent, the experts from Darkness Palace were so startled that their faces turned pale. Immediately, they groveled, "Palace Master, please calm down." Palace Master. 2 black-robed elders rushed over before they stopped a short distance away from Qingtan. When they saw the distorted space, they said, "Palace Master, the infiltrating Yimo are all extremely powerful and most ordinary experts are unable to detect them." Qingtan clenched her teeth, while rich killing intent surged within her icy cold eyes. Currently, she no longer looked like that lovable lass that was sleeping peacefully in Lin Dong's embrace. Instead, she looked like the supreme queen of the northern Xian region, who wielded the power of life and death in her hands. Taking a deep breath, Qingtan stopped venting her anger at her subordinates. The infiltrating Yimo were indeed extremely powerful, and even she had merely noticed them a moment ago. Moreover, she knew that it was also oversight on her part. After all, when she was around Lin Dong, she would subconsciously let down her guard and stop being so cautious, which was something drilled into her over the years. However, she never expected that this had ended up harming Lin Dong instead. "Palace Master, these spatial fluctuations are very intense. However, I believe that this shouldn't be a long-distance teleportation. After all, Sir Lin Dong is no ordinary individual and a long-distance spatial teleportation formation will definitely be broken by him. Therefore, I believe that the teleportation location should be around the outskirts of the Darkness City." The 2 black-robed elders were indeed extremely experienced, as they muttered their deductions after observing the spatial fluctuations. An icy cold glint flashed across Qingtan's eyes. Promptly, she clenched his small hands before she commanded in a deep voice, "Spread my orders. Send out the city's enforcement troops and the Darkness Judgment Army. Search every nook and cranny within 1,000 miles radius of Darkness City. Moreover, if anyone spots a terrifying fluctuation in any location, report it immediately." "Yes." Upon hearing this, the experts from Darkness Palace immediately replied. Then, they quickly turned around and began to spread her order. After all, as of now, they didn't want to be near to Qingtan, who was currently outraged. As she stared at the countless scattering figures, Qingtan clenched her small fists and gritted her teeth until they started to creak. Between her brows, an ancient symbol continuously flashed. Evidently, she was extremely furious about the fact that Lin Dong was abducted from right under her nose. After Qingtan gave her order, the entire darkness city immediately descended into chaos. This was a dense forest. A silver moon hung high in the sky as gentle moonlight shone down, draping the forest in a thin silver blanket. The originally peaceful sky suddenly began to distort violently. After which, a black light appeared. After that black light scattered, several figures appeared in the sky. This is a pretty decent place. I believe that the both of you should be satisfied if we pick this place as your burial grounds. The seventh seat king chuckled while looking at the Lindong duo. After all, the Darkness City was the territory of Darkness Palace. Moreover, Qingtan, the Palace Master of Darkness Palace, had both the Darkness Ancestral Symbol and the restored Darkness Saint Scythe. Therefore, if they were to act in the city, they were afraid that some unforeseen circumstances may occur. Hence, they decided to teleport the Lindong duo out of the Darkness City. By doing so, they would be able to ensure that their plan remains foolproof. Lindong stared emotionlessly at that frightening lineup. The seventh seat king, whose strength was equivalent to an expert who has passed 2 reincarnation tribulations, and 5 Yimo kings, who were equivalent to reincarnation stage experts. When up against such a lineup, even the current him felt a rich sense of danger. When the fight begins, I will do my best to block and delay them. Look for an opportunity to leave and find Qingtan. Lindong turned his head and whispered to Ling Qingshu. Ling Qingshu glanced at him, before she shook her head and said, "Don't spew such nonsense. The predicament that we are currently in is something that even you cannot deal with. If I were to leave, it would be pointless even if I found Qingtan." When he saw that she had suddenly turned obstinate at this moment, Lindong couldn't help but feel frustrated. However, Ling Qingshu remained fearless, and her calm and collected gaze left him with no choice but to shake his head helplessly. "It seems like there will be quite a commotion when we fight. I need to make some preparations first." The seventh seat king laughed and looked at the Lindong duo. Then, he suddenly raised his arms. Boom! After he raised his arms, rich demonic aura flowed out from within the bodies of the 5 Yimo kings. Then, they transformed into a huge demonic aura light screen and enveloped the entire forest. By doing so, this prevented any fluctuations from being leaked out. Evidently, the 7th seat king was bent on killing Lindong today. When the 7th seat king saw that the demonic aura light screen was formed, he finally chuckled before he gently nodded his head. Then, he lowered his head and looked at the Lindong duo, before he said, "Other than the symbol ancestor, you're the first person I've met who can control more than one ancestral symbol. Therefore, although you've yet to advance to the reincarnation stage, your position on our hit list is merely dwarfed by the 8 ancient masters. However, after today, perhaps your name will be crossed off from my Devil Prison's hit list." After he said those words, the smile on the 7th seat king's face became even more insidious. Following which, vast amounts of vicious demonic aura, that could seemingly blanket the sky, gushed out from within his body. Immediately, the entire wood started to wither. In fact, even the natural Yuan power started to cry out in anguish. With a large smile on his face, the 7th seat king tapped the empty space with one finger. Immediately, a demonic aura light beam, that was so viscous that it was almost liquid-like, shot out from his finger and streaked across the empty space, before it flew towards Lindong with lightning-like speed. When he saw the 7th seat king make his move, a rich killing intent gushed violently within Lindong's eyes. Waving his sleeve, a black shadow shot out before it swung its black long blade, ferociously hacking against that demonic aura light beam in the process. Clang! Sparks flew in all directions while the surrounding space trembled. Meanwhile, the sky-devouring corpse, which was holding onto a black long blade, was pushed back by tens of feet. When he saw this sight, Lindong was stunned. After all, this was the first time he saw this sky-devouring corpse, which was strengthened by the devouring master, falling into a disadvantage. Is that the devouring master's sky-devouring corpse? It's definitely stronger than before. However, it will not be able to save you guys today. The 7th seat king chuckled, before he slowly shut his eyes. Promptly, the demonic aura sea behind him began to churn violently, before a frightening pressure started to spread. Evidently, the 7th seat king was about to execute his killing move. A terrifying demonic aura pressure spread far and wide, causing the entire place to darken completely. This was the first time Lin Dong personally witnessed the frightening might of a member of the upper echelon of the Devil Prison. Moreover, this fluctuation was so powerful that it would even diminish one's courage to oppose him. Lin Dong inhaled a deep breath of air with a solemn expression on his face. With his current fighting strength, he could obtain the upper hand when up against an ordinary reincarnation stage expert by relying on his Yuan power, which had touched reincarnation, and his mental energy, which was currently at the Supreme Symbol Master level. In addition, if he relied on his two great ancestral symbols, he would even be able to fight on par with those peak experts who have passed one reincarnation tribulation. However, from a certain point of view, that was his limit. Unfortunately, the seventh seat king standing in front of him possessed terrifying strength that was equivalent to those who had passed two reincarnation tribulations. It was not going to be easy to survive this crisis. Lin Dong slowly clenched both of his hands tightly. Then, his pitch-black eyes stared at the seventh seat king, who now resembled a devil god thanks to the monstrous demonic sea behind him. Finally, a brutal glow gradually surged from deep within his eyes. Lin Dong had experienced far too many life and death battles over the years. Therefore, he had already been honed to the point whereby he would not feel fear regardless of who his opponent was. Hence, even though his current opponent was extremely terrifying, if the latter thought that he could finish off Lin Dong easily, he would be too naive. Rumble. Thunder clouds gathered rapidly in the sky. Following which, rumbling thunder roars reverberated across the sky. Lin Dong's eyes gradually turned strange at this moment. One of his eyes looked as deep as a black hole, while the other was as bright as lightning. One was black while the other was silver. Meanwhile, amidst this peculiar sight, an extremely violent ripple spread. I see. With a faint smile, the seventh seat king looked at Lin Dong, who was currently in that peculiar state. However, his eyes were not smiling. Instead, there was only an endless chill present within them. In the next moment, he pressed his finger on the air. Bang! The mighty demonic sea behind him churned. Then, they turned into 100,000 feet large nine-headed devil python. Following which, that python roared towards the sky, before it spurted a vast amount of demonic aura, blotting out the sun in the process. That nine-headed python had already rushed forward while the demonic aura surged. Under its assault, the space itself began to collapse an inch at a time. Rumble, rumble. The thunder clouds in the sky churned violently. Soon after, a frightening lightning waterfall, that looked like a silver river, came pouring down with a terrifying momentum. Then, it ruthlessly struck onto the body of that nine-headed devil python. Lightning glow was wildly cracking over the body of that nine-headed devil python. Although the demonic aura would vanish wherever the lightning passed, even more frightening demonic aura would quickly appear. Finally, that lightning waterfall, which contained the strength of the thunderbolt ancestral symbol, was completely eroded. That nine-headed devil python, which had a large mouth filled with endless demonic aura, had already penetrated through space at this moment. Finally, it flew towards the area where Lin Dong was located and tried to bite him. Immediately, the space itself collapsed. Lin Dong looked at that nine-headed devil python, which was attempting to bite him, before lightning glow erupted within his eyes. Lifting his palm high up, a 10,000 feet large thunderbolt promptly descended before it transformed into a 10,000 feet large lightning spear. Lin Dong gripped that lightning spear, before he emitted a low roar from his throat. A moment later, his body shot forward like lightning and directly charged towards the ferocious large mouth of that nine-headed devil python. Bright lightning glow suddenly erupted from within the large mouth of that nine-headed devil python, before it roared towards the sky. However, that lightning glow was just like tens of thousands of lightning swords, as it ravaged the interior of its massive body before it shot out from within. Bang! That nine-headed devil python exploded with a loud bang. Following which, demonic aura sputtered out in all directions. Then, a lightning light shot out, before Lin Dong, who was currently wrapped by lightning glow, landed on the ground just like the god of lightning. Devour! After Lin Dong destroyed that nine-headed devil python, he suddenly swiped his hand at that distant seventh seat king. Meanwhile, black lights were glimmering on his fingertips. After which, the space around the latter crumbled, before 4 enormous black hole swirls appeared, forming a prison which trapped him within. Finally, devouring power surged before the resulting tearing force attempted to rip the 7th Seat King apart. Ha ha. However, up against Lin Dong's attack, that 7th Seat King merely laughed out loud. Moreover, his laughter was filled with ridicule. After which, monstrous demonic aura shot out from within his body like assault waves. Bang bang bang. The tearing force from those 4 black hole swirls had only just formed before they were forcefully destroyed by the demonic aura assault waves. Clearly, the 7th Seat King was much stronger than Lin Dong. Great heaven, devil hand. The 7th Seat King clenched his hand violently, before the entire place darkened. Then, a devil hand, which seemed to have came from another dimension, slowly appeared, blotting out the sun in the process. Meanwhile, there was actually a huge black eye on that devil hand. When that eye blinked, an annihilation force shot out. A devil light containing an annihilation force suddenly shot out from within that devil hand. It immediately enveloped Lin Dong in the blink of an eye. As that devil light flew over, Lin Dong clenched his hand. Then, a 10,000 feet large black hole swirl appeared in front of him. After which, it rotated wildly, appearing like a huge mouth, before it forcefully took on that devil light. Bang bang bang. Earth-shaking explosion noises erupted from within that black hole swirl. Soon after, that black hole became extremely distorted, before it finally exploded with a loud bang. Lin Dong was immediately sent flying by over 10,000 feet due to that frightening assault wave. Promptly, he felt a sweet sensation rush up his throat, before traces of blood appeared on the corner of his lips. That attack from the 7th Seat King was simply too terrifying. Even though he tried to use his devouring power to counteract against it, he was still unable to completely block it. You are indeed someone who is worthy of possessing 2 great ancestral symbols. Even top experts, who have passed 1 reincarnation tribulation, are unable to block my attacks. Yet, you were actually able to handle them. The 7th Seat King looked at Lin Dong before he smilingly said. Lin Dong's eyes were icy cold. However, he did not waste his breath on unnecessary words. Suddenly, his hand seals changed, before he pressed his hand downwards and shouted, "Great Desolation Scripture." A unique ripple charged into the ground. Subsequently, the entire mountain forest quickly turned barren at a frightening rate. Following which, vast and endless amounts of energy coursed rapidly beneath the ground, before they finally converged towards the spot where Lin Dong was located. Bang! A tens of thousands of feet large energy light pillar broke through the ground at this moment. Finally, it poured into that skinny figure, who was standing in the sky. After that frightening amount of energy poured in, it caused Lin Dong's body to swell by a notch. After which, he suddenly roared towards the sky. Meanwhile, there was an ancient dragon roar mixed within his roar. Roar? Purple gold light spluttered forward at this moment. Following which, a total of 8,000 purple gold dragon light tattoos surged around Lin Dong's body. As those dragon light tattoos danced, the ground beneath collapsed due to the pressure. Purple gold light was flowing across the surface of Lin Dong's body. Then, he stared viciously at the 7th Seat King, who was standing in the sky. After which, his body shot forward before he directly approached the 7th Seat King and threw a punch. Immediately, 8,000 purple gold dragon light tattoos danced. Moreover, wherever his fist passed by, the surrounding space would shatter. Bang! Up against Lin Dong's fearsome attack, the 7th Seat King did not pull back. Instead, viscous demonic aura began to circle around his hand. After which, he threw a punch and clashed head-on with Lin Dong. Both their fists clashed, before the empty space within tens of thousands of feet cracked an inch at a time. Bang bang bang. Both their bodies trembled. Meanwhile, there was a brutal glow glimmering within both their eyes. After which, various punches whizzed forward and actually clashed in all directions. The dragon light tattoos and demonic aura surged wildly. Rumble. The sound of space shattering reverberated continuously across the sky. Wild gales surged and a hurricane swirled. It turns out that their frightening clash had flattened the entire mountain forest. Boom! This was another fearsome clash that could not be described adequately with words. As of now, Lin Dong's fists were covered with fresh blood and even his flesh was ripped off, exposing the jade-like bones beneath them. Fortunately, he possessed the primal dragon bone. Otherwise, it was likely that his bones would have been turned into dust after that clash. Nonetheless, the blood within his body was raging violently. Though he looked confident in that head-on clash, he had sustained severe injuries. Lin Dong flew backwards, while he continued to stare intently at the seventh-seat king. At this moment, black blood was also dripping off the latter's hands. Together with the smile on his face, he looked somewhat gloomy. It was likely that he had never expected that he would actually be injured in the process of dealing with someone like Lin Dong. Nevertheless, these injuries were hardly noteworthy to him. What an extraordinary fellow! However, this will only increase my desire to kill you personally. A smile once again appeared on the seventh-seat king's gloomy face. Soon after, he opened his mouth. Immediately, he directly swallowed the viscous demonic sea behind him. His body began to tremble violently at this moment, while viscous black objects seeped out from within his body. Finally, they slowly wrapped around his body and formed an extremely fearsome bloody black devil armor. That devil armor covered every inch of his body. Meanwhile, there were sharp metallic lines extended on that armor and every single one of them gave off a terrifying brutal sensation. When that devil armor appeared, a terrifying ripple, which could not be described with words, slowly emerged. In fact, it felt as though an alien object which could annihilate the world, had descended into this world. When Lin Dong saw this scene, his pupils promptly shrunk slightly. Lin Dong, do you know what this is? The seventh-seat king smiled towards Lin Dong. However, his smile was filled with murderous intent. Lin Dong's body tensed up. Meanwhile, he was trying his best to circulate the strength within his body. However, he did not reply. This is the Devil Emperor armor. This was personally given to us by our emperor. Typically, we will only use this when we fight against the 8 ancient masters. However, today, I used it because of you. Therefore, the smile on the seventh-seat king's face became increasingly brutal. Therefore, there is nothing to regret even if you die by my hands today. Lin Dong slowly clenched his fists, which were currently drenched with blood. His heart, which was originally pounding violently, gradually calmed down. The fight today had given him a taste of death. However, regardless of who the other party was, one would have to pay a massive price in order to kill him. Lin Dong suddenly widened his eyes, before a wild and brutal aura slowly surged forward. This video will end here.